Still calling your congressman? Waiting on hold? Hoping someone took your message?
Thank you for calling.
There's a better way to do this. The MAHA Legislative Tracker lets you browse every MAHA bill. Pick the ones that matter to you and send a letter to your rep with a single click. Search federal, by state, or by the issues you care about most. Take 60 seconds and make it count. Your voice can make America healthy again at mahaaction.org.
There was a time when the news delivered truth,
It still seems like a dream.
when integrity was paramount,
I cannot contend that I have always been right or wise.
and trusted voices guided a nation.
How do you measure such an astonishing moment?
Today, the headlines are blurred, the signal lost in the noise of corporate agendas and paid narratives.
Vocal anti-vaxxer.
Deranged lies.
It is humiliating.
What happened to the truth? It hasn't disappeared. It's simply moved. The MAHA Report brings you unfiltered, independent journalism covering the issues of the Make America Healthy Again movement. Rediscover the facts and reclaim the truth. Subscribe now at themahareport.com.
Welcome to the MAHA Media Hub, and welcome to the MAHA Revolution. I'm Tony Lyons, president of MAHA Action. I'll be honest with you. Some weeks, it feels like Secretary Kennedy is moving faster than we can keep up with. And I'll tell you the truth. I'll take it. Every single week, we're seeing real reforms. And every one of them is part of something bigger, a long game, to make Americans healthier and, frankly, to make them happier. He's bringing honesty, integrity, and loyalty to the people and to the principles that are transforming public health. This week, we hit a big one. 19 more medical schools signed President Trump's nutrition education pledge. It's voluntary. Nobody is forcing anybody to do anything. What it means is that these schools are going to start teaching nutrition as a core part of how we train the next generation of doctors, nurses, and everyone else in healthcare. That brings us to 73 schools that are doing this. And let me tell you why that matters. We've all said it. Food is medicine. We've heard it 100 times. But now the people who are going to be running medicine tomorrow are actually going to learn what those words mean. That's how you start turning this country away from a system built around sick care and toward one that delivers truly world-class preventive health. So how do we get there? How did we get there? I'll tell you, it took a lot of people and a lot of work and a whole lot of stubbornness. Long before he ever became HHS secretary, Bobby Kennedy spent decades of his life on the very causes we now call MAHA. He did it despite unprecedented censorship. He did it despite corporate pressure that is, at a level that you can't imagine. He did it at real personal cost and with real bravery. But he didn't do it alone. This movement was growing before it even had a name. It was happening in laboratories and at school board meetings, at farmers markets and around kitchen tables, in the halls of Congress, and in the pages of the books that helped get us here. And then 2024 happened. It was an historic election, one that took MAHA from the fringes, from the margins, and put us in a place where we can actually drive change, inside the government and well beyond it. Which is exactly why the midterms matter so much. Just this month, an outsider candidate, someone who ran proudly under the MAHA banner, our friend Zach Lane, won Iowa's Republican gubernatorial primary. And that win is already pulling more candidates and millions of voters all across the country toward MAHA this cycle and toward MAHA candidates. When you see a MAHA endorsement next to a candidate's name, you know exactly what that means, and you know what you're getting. Someone who shares your values, your hopes, and your resolve to end the chronic disease epidemic. Someone who cares about our children, who are the future of this incredible country. And as Americans, we need MAHA to restore our health. As voters, we need it to protect and build on everything we've fought so hard to win. And if you're running for office, you need MAHA too, because this movement just might be your margin of victory. That's what we're seeing time after time. We watched it happen in Iowa. And, that's just the beginning of this revolution. Now we have a tremendous group with us today. These are people who've been leading this conversation from every angle you can think of, from medicine and science to advocacy to culture and communications. You'll hear from two leaders on the front lines at HHS, the administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, the director of National Health Communications for the Office of the Surgeon General, Dr. Stephanie Haridopoulos, and from CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield. Mary Holland, the incredible CEO of Children's Health Defense, is going to fill us in on CHD's Day of Advocacy, which is happening right now, today in DC. We're also joined by people who reach millions of folks outside the policy world entirely. Cheryl Hines, incredible actor and author, Russell Brand, comedian, podcast host, and author. Both of them have done so much to grow this conversation and bring new people into it. And we're also grateful to have Dr. Robert Malone, Dr. Joel Friedman, physician and author, Dr. Eric Berg, the knowledge doc, human biologist Gary Brecka, and two of the leading voices in the chiropractic world, Dr. Sherry McAllister and Dr. Jason Yeager. Every one of them is here to share what they know about how we get healthier as a country and as individuals. But first up, we have CMS Director Dr. Mehmet Oz. He oversees health coverage for 160 million people in this country, and he's been working just incredibly hard, doing things that have needed to be done for a generation, but just haven't been done. And so he's been working to shift the focus from treatment to prevention and from drugs to nutrition, and to make it easier and more affordable to be healthy. Dr. Oz has also been saving the American people billions, literally billions of dollars by fighting the rampant fraud in California, New York, and all around the country. So thanks for everything you're doing, Dr. Oz, and welcome.
Thanks, Tony, for having me on. I appreciate the introduction. I thought I'd talk about a few topics that are germane to this audience. The first is one that I've been working on closely with Secretary Kennedy. He bravely put forth a food pyramid that was right side up. And I point that out because the researcher for decades have been dishonestly creating negative narratives around the importance of meat protein. And because of removing saturated fat and protein from acceptable foods, you're left with carbohydrates. And so we kept telling people to eat white foods, white rice, white flour, white pasta, white sugar. And sure enough, Americans did that. Is a massively increase in obesity. And the reason it costs us twice as much to pay for healthcare in America is we're twice as fat. The statistic specifically is 43% rate of obesity in America. It's about 20% in Europe. Despite the pasta, despite their bread, something's different, but they're not putting the weight on. And part of it is that they're actually eating other sources of wholesome food. The Japanese, by the way, 5% obesity rate. So you can't keep up with countries around you if you're dealing with chronic illnesses, because the obesity numbers drive high blood pressure, they drive diabetes. Those have their own downstream problems. They affect your memory, with dementia risk, strokes, affect heart disease, with heart artery blockages. They cause renal failure from damage to the actual tissues of the kidney themselves, liver issues. I mean, a slew of problems, including, by the way, wrinkles, if you care about those. And so there's many reasons to care about these chronic illnesses in addition to their cost structure to the country. And so there's a large number of reasons to pay attention to food. And unfortunately, if you go to medical school and in your training, you never hear about nutrition or food, well, that's a problem, because when you go into practice, one thing for sure you know, because you're so smart and you learned everything in medical school, is if they didn't teach it to you in medical school, Not that important. How could it be important if I didn't hear about it in medical school? If it was important, I would have gotten a lecture on biochemistry or pharmacology or pathophysiology. But because I didn't have a lecture on nutrition, I'm quite confident it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a rounding error in the end of the day. That's why so many physicians don't know much about nutrition. Nurses, same problem. We're not taught it in nursing school. And all the health professions focus on things that generate billable hours. Now, the good news is when the secretary flipped the pyramid back on appropriately on its tip, we got medical schools to begin to take note. And so they have this week, we had an announcement, signed up in increasing numbers to have their classes, about 40 hours in an average education, include culinary nutrition. And another 20 roughly signed up this week. There was an initial corpus of almost 50. So now it's become this avalanche as medical schools realize to be cool, you got to teach nutrition. But again, we want to teach culinary nutrition. And by that, I mean, don't just teach people to eat lycopene in a pill form because it's good for you and it has lots of beneficial elements to it. But you can get lycopene from a tomato, but you can't just bite into a tomato because you can't get the lycopene actually out of the tomato if you chew into it nearly as well as if you go through the hassle. It is a bit of a hassle of peeling the tomato, mashing it up. You got to mix it with some kind of a fat, let's say olive oil. And if you add some salt and pepper and some basil, well, you basically have pasta sauce. It turns out pasta sauce gives you biologically accessible lycopene. So culinary nutrition allows doctors to learn enough about how to make food that they might actually be able to teach a patient who's debating what to eat, how to do it correctly. And that segues quite nicely with the need to get hospitals to serve healthier food. And we've talked about Jeff Zakarian's work in the past on this podcast, this video cast. But it turns out that, you can actually, Jeff's done it, Tampa General, who's able to bring healthier food into the clinics, costs 5% extra. And why is it so little? Making bespoke meals from wholesome foods you think would be a lot more expensive. It's not, because we throw away a quarter of the food you serve in a hospital, the tray, because it's not edible and you didn't order it, you don't want to eat it. So that gets tossed. Instead, by making it bespoke and with real food, you very nuanced ways provide exactly what the patient needs so they'll consume it, which of course allows them to get the nutrients that are so valuable for their well-being. And I think that kind of a mindset changes our ability to think about food as medicine dramatically. This week, there was a big conference that I spoke at that helped address some of these issues. And I think now doctors are realizing that if you use nutrition wisely for chronic conditions, you can measure the benefit. It's measured in reduction of ER visits and hospitalizations, up to 50%, hundreds of dollars of value per month to the average beneficiary. And that kind of math adds up pretty quickly. Now, if you really want to deliver this to the average American and get them to be activists in this, you want them to be able to listen to someone that they trust who can talk about it with some authority. Now, I've seen her create a mean pasta sauce. I've even been able to taste some of it, but she's especially good when she's making it for someone she cares deeply about, which is Bobby Kennedy. So let me introduce Cheryl Hines. She's the kind of person that can turn your head around anyway. We have advocates like Cheryl speaking to these issues. You can actually make food cool enough that people go through the hassle factor of going on ChatGPT and learning how to make the food taste better than they used to. And that ultimately is the way you make food part of our culture. Cheryl, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. Well, I have been cooking more, actually, since I've been in DC. And I think Bobby appreciates it, although he really eats a very limited diet. We know this. He eats steak and ground beef and fermented vegetables. So I really don't have to do much cooking for him. But I just wanted to pop in today and say hello to everybody. And, a lot of people, especially recently, have asked me how Bobby is handling some of the attacks that come at him. We see hit pieces in the press, and I'm here to tell you, he takes it in stride. Bobby has one of the strongest wills of anyone I know, and hit piece attacks don't bother him. In fact, it only makes him stronger and it makes him more determined. So, when you have the truth on your side, it's very powerful. So just know that you don't need to worry about Bobby. He's as strong as ever and will continue the fight. And one of the reasons why he can stay so strong is because of MAHA and because of the group that we have here. everyone seems to move in such an organized, informed, enthusiastic way that it just is a force. And we can feel it. And he can feel it. So, I was just in his office yesterday, and Callie Means came in and said for the first time in over a decade, obesity is down in America. The obesity rate is down. He also said that Americans are buying less ultra-processed food. So we are seeing results. We are seeing engagement. We are seeing the messaging getting out to people, regardless of what the press is saying or what the attacks might be. Real progress is being made, and it's because of you. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to tell you, too, being in Washington, D.C., you can feel the power of MAHA here. And like Tony was saying, people are going and voting because of MAHA endorsements, and they're paying attention. And it's really something to see. And also, I will tell you, when the MAHA moms show up on Capitol Hill, no one is ignoring them. People are scared of them. Some of them are. And a lot of people are cheering around the country. So I just want to let you know that we feel it here in DC. Bobby definitely feels it every day. And it's fun working with Dr. Oz and seeing the crew here, every day. They make it look effortless sometimes. They're out there fighting these huge battles. But it's a very big job. I don't have to tell you that. But the work that Bobby's doing, that Dr. Oz is doing, it is important. And it could be disheartening because there are so many attacks and there are so many people coming at them. But the strength of MAHA is like a force field around them. So please keep it up. And thank you so much for being there, for engaging, for being smart, for being passionate. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Cheryl. What Oz said, 43% of people in this country are obese. And in Europe, it's 20%. In Japan, it's 5%. So you have to think, how can that possibly be true? I mean, how can we not do better when we spend 2.5 to 3 times the amount of money that those countries spend? But, so this team, your incredible husband, is doing such a great job, lowering these rates and getting them to teach nutrition in hospitals, getting them to feed, in medical schools, getting them to feed healthy food in schools and in hospitals. I mean, all of this progress is just unprecedented. It's been a generation of failing to the top, that the people who had power just did an incredibly bad job. And we go to people like, Dr. Berg and Gary Brecka, who tell the American public what to do, and Bobby Kennedy and Dr. Oz, who, really get these rules changed. And we're making great progress. But, while this is happening, the New York Times and so many different places say Bobby Kennedy, Dr. Oz, all these people, this entire team, they're dangerous. So the question is, what are they a danger to? And I'd say they're a danger to a corrupt way of doing business, that, taking care of people is a business in this country. It's nothing from the heart. It's just to make money. And these people have been poisoning the American public for a generation, and your husband is getting them to stop. So I just want to thank you for standing up for us, for Bobby, for the whole country, and making this progress possible, because it's earth-shattering what's happening. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter how many hit pieces they write, because what's happening is saving children's lives, saving families' lives. So Thank you so much, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Russell Brand, and he's been wrongly accused by those same kinds of newspapers. He's been vilified, prosecuted, persecuted, deplatformed, demonized, censored, but he always stands by his convictions, and he's just keeps right on going, and we stand with him. So he's the author of an incredible new book, How to Become a Christian in 7 Days. It's currently being censored all around the world. The UK, they took it down from all major platforms. You're supposed to be innocent till you're proven guilty. He is innocent. Buy his book, listen to him. He's a great man, and I'm proud to have him on the show again. Welcome.
Thank you. Gosh, I love you. It's very good for my self-esteem to spend some time with you this week. And then the additional advantage of seeing the incomparable and elegant Cheryl Hines there. I was in, me, my wife, and my family were at the Jack Nicklaus Hospital in Miami for 48 hours, just over, while my boy Herbie undertook some neurological observations, a sleep study. As I've mentioned before on your, are we calling this a podcast or show, the Tony Lyons MAHA show, Tony Lyons Rampant MAHA show, Tony Lyons and the Radicals. He has DeGeorge syndrome, which is a chromosome disorder. Oh man, it's curious to be in a hospital environment, and it's very interesting to personally encounter some of the things that you're describing. Dedicated, well-intentioned professionals, both nurses and doctors and orderlies. The great spiritual relief that comes from being in a hospital where the motivation of those present is good. The doctors that work there, the nurses that work there are all in this heightened space of care and concern. Personally, where I live a life where I spend some time thinking about my personal situation, my business situation, the trial in October, to experience the relief of knowing there's a deeper reality that all of us, when exposed to the reality of our condition, our essential vulnerability, our mortality, our fallibility, the fact that we're prone to illness and disease, the fact that there are unfair things that appear to happen everywhere, it's a relief and a respite, and it demands the kind of purity and priestliness that I pray is what we have concord and agreement around when it comes to, for example, Secretary Kennedy and Dr. Oz. Devout people. Devoutness ain't worth anything if it doesn't lead to obedience, if it doesn't lead to sacrifice, if it doesn't lead to a willingness to put aside your own concerns and your own fears and focus on what's truly important. While in there, you see some interesting things. I'm confronted with my deep loathing of needless and groundless regulation, like when you can't administer a particular medication to a child without the supervision of a medical professional, even if you're used to administering that medicine regularly because you live with the kid, And when one notes authoritarianism as an extension of care has been one of the great problems of our time. The claim that care legitimizes authority. Any parent knows that part of your care over your children requires control and authority. But when this is extrapolated and scaled to the level of states and nations, the problem of corruption increases exponentially. And it's this that we spend so much time discussing. So even amidst my gratitude for the dedication of the many professionals that I encountered there that help Herbie with his condition, that administer the various, like he was being sort of neurologically scanned, so that like getting that thing glued on his scalp, like it was a drama, let's say. But I also met these two twins, about 14, 15, one male, one female, with a condition called butterfly skin. They were lining up for coffee near me, and I ended up in an interaction with these beautiful children. Butterfly skin is a condition of fragility and vulnerability, a dermatological condition that means, I suppose, and this is just based on looking at them, not a diagnosis that I'm in any position to offer, but a kind of vulnerability and fragility. I think that some of their digits and even the ends of some of their limbs may have been eroded. These children were so spirited and so beautiful, so grateful and so kind. And I know that even my sympathy and pity for them is tinged with a certain judgment, i.e., when I feel not empathy, yes, empathy, but also some kind of sadness of the lives that they won't live, that they won't be walked down some future aisle by a parent, that they won't know what it's like to walk unaided, and presumably the most basic bodily functions for them are accompanied with difficulty and suffering. It exposed me to my own lack of faith and belief, and it exposed me to my unaddressed assumption that this plane is the highest plane there is, and that if you can't participate in this plane through beauty and pleasure and unimpeded leisure, you are somehow in deficit. Oh, how sad to be you, I might have been thinking at some unarticulated level of my consciousness. How sad to be you and not to be able to leap and jump and hug. But actually, these children were like interdimensional beings accessing some power beyond what I could claim, living a life joyfully and free from expectation, and in the acceptance of, it seemed at least to me, of God's love and God's grace. There is more to life than what you can gain and the ways in which you can control others and extract profit and demonstrate dominion, whether corporately or governmentally. And here, the truth of this movement, the beauty in this movement, is an opportunity to recognize that in the fields of care, and all government is supposed to be about care, even defense, and who among us still believes that the military-industrial complex have no motives other than the protection of the American people. But when it comes to HHS and when it comes to hospitals and sick children and nutrition and food, it's so easy to make out the silhouette of the faithful life that we don't live. It's so easy to make out the silhouette of a truthful and authentic condition where you eat good food, where the providers of medical care have no motive aside from your well-being. And astonishing though it still is to me, to bring about that state is going to require enormous heroism and self-sacrifice. And so the people in these bureaucratic and managerial positions of governmental leadership are going to have to draw succor from somewhere profound and spiritual. And blessedly, I, to some degree, know both Dr. Oz and Secretary Kennedy and have faith yet that they are precisely the type of people that you need in those roles. Thanks for having me on, Tony Lyons. I can see that we've got Robert Malone coming up and Eric Berg and Gary Brecker. This is a show to end all shows. Beautiful, kind, brilliant people. Thank you very much for having me, Tony.
Thanks so much for coming on. And, maybe we should call it the Radical MAHA Warrior Show, because it's radical in this country to not want to poison the American public. That's an incredible idea, that we're radical, that we're dangerous because we don't want to poison people, because we care about our children, because we want to protect our children. We want to love our children. So, the things that you say, the eloquence of it, the beauty of it all, the love that you show is just so important to this movement and so genuine and so caring. And I feel really grateful for it. So thank you. Next up, we have Gary Brecker. And, Gary is the visionary founder of The Ultimate Human. And he's a renowned human biologist, a biohacker, a longevity expert. And he travels all around the world, giving speeches, helping teach people how to live, healthier, happier lives. And he's a MAHA champion. But, he really is the epitome of somebody who's doing what he really believes in. And we want people to make money doing the right thing in this country. That's the thing. MAHA isn't anti-capitalist. You're supposed to do well, work hard, make money, but do it in ways that help children, help families, that help all of us. So Gary really does that. Gary, thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for all the things that you teach people through your posts, through your show, through the work you do. Just great to have you on here again.
Thank you so much, Tony. It's amazing. It really is a blessing to be a part of this movement. I don't think any of us could contribute our time to any one in-service entity or message that would have the kind of legacy-leaving impact that is going to come from being a part of the MAHA movement. When I was a mortality scientist for large life insurance companies, we were co-constructing something called the variable basic table, which is a mortality table that nearly all life insurance and annuities and financial services products that use mortality as a milestone use as a foundation to price these products, reverse mortgages and what have you. What was fascinating about this database, and I've talked about this before, was that we had all these little factors that we would call morbidity factors and comorbidity factors, morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, smoking, all of these different factors. And you put these into the model. And essentially what it attempted to do was put you in a cohort of 1,000 lives and predict your mortality to the month. And the model was extraordinarily accurate, 371 million lives that we were drawing from. And on those lives, when they passed, we knew the day, the date, the time, the location, and the cause of death. So it was a very accurate, large mortality model. It's called a probabilistic model. I can emphatically say that the reason why the vast majority of Americans are not living healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives are for what we would call modifiable risk factors. Even 22 years ago, we knew that dietary and lifestyle changes would have dramatically shifted our model, but the incidence, the probability of them making those changes was so low, we would normally assign it a 0 probability. Someone with a sedentary lifestyle would change their habits. Some with poor eating habits and hyperinsulinemia and high hemoglobin A1C and insulin resistance and elevated triglycerides would make the dietary and lifestyle changes. And I've reframed the way that I look at MAHA since I've become a small part of this movement. No longer am I so altruistic that we're going to think that we're going to go in and fix, in the next 3 years, this bloated, bureaucratic, entrenched, healthcare system with all of its, specific agendas. I'll leave that to Dr. Oz. What I see when I look back at all of these wins is maybe we're not fixing the healthcare system, but we are keeping people out of it in mass. And I wish that we had the data, because I could draw the correlated data right now that would show you what it means to get highly processed foods out of people's diets, to get physical education back in the public school system, to get petroleum-based dyes and toxicity out of the way that we feed people in the hospital and the way we feed our military and the way that we feed our public school children, because the impact is demonstrative. Modifiable risk factors, if exercised, would have been the largest shift in the model. On average, 7 years, not just to the lifespan, but to the health span of the people that we were doing these mortality models on. Yet annuity companies and reverse mortgages and life insurance companies would make $25 million bets on a single life that they wouldn't change their habits. And it was that profound. And what I see now, the culmination of this messaging, MAHA-backed candidates now winning primary elections, pesticide liability protections removed, leucovorin, which is a prescription strength folinic acid, a nutrient that we're now using to treat cerebral folate deficiency, which is correlated to autism and other neuroinflammatory conditions in the brain. Continued state expansion of the SNAP food restrictions. The MAHA Children's Health Agenda. I think it was General Mills that announced that 85% of their food products are now dye-free, and the other 15% are being phased out by the end of 2026. Kraft, Nestle, and Heinz are following suit. These were exactly the modifiable risk factors that we never modeled into mortality predictions because people just didn't make them. And now it's happening in mass. And I see it on our platform. We have one of the largest media platforms in the world just for wellness and longevity, very narrow sector, but high level of interest in that. The adoption rate of people becoming citizen scientists right now is parabolic. It eclipses every other area of interest globally: sports, entertainment, travel, leisure, and culinary. I see them over my time, but I've reframed the way that I think about MAHA. I think that our agenda is working because it's keeping people out of the system. I wish we had 5-year data today because it would so solidify this agenda and it would ingrain this in the minds of Americans and let them know that what we're doing is working. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Gary. It's such great points there that, that there are modifiable risk factors, that we can be healthier. We want to be healthier. We want our children to be healthier. And, we can do these kinds of things by changing our habits, by making better choices. And so, thank you for, day in and day out, just posting things all the time that make it easier for millions of people in this country to make better choices, because we can't get the information from the companies that are poisoning us. That just won't work. That won't happen. That's not their business model. So thank you for having a business model that results in people making better choices.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Dr. Stephanie Haridopoulos, and she is the Director of National Health Communications for the Office of the Surgeon General. She's a board-certified family medicine physician and public health advocate with more than 2 decades of, really good experience in getting things done. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for coming on for, I think, the 7th time.
Well, thank you, Tony, for inviting me to this. Welcome, MAHA family. It's a true honor to be on with such amazing speakers that you have today. Gary is a wonderful friend, and yes, I learn a lot from him. But what I want to pivot today and talk about is Parkinson's disease. And I believe, and I think a lot of you would agree, that this progressive brain disorder has a low genetic propensity. So only about 13% of patients that have Parkinson's disease are genetic. That means overwhelmingly 87% are due to multifactorial, mostly environmental toxins. And so coming up, if you don't know, and I hope you tune in, there's a brand new federal advisory committee called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease that has its first public meeting June 29th. And I'm honored to be one of the federal members on there from the Office of the Surgeon General. There are 13 federal members and 10 non-federal members. And so we're convening to come together for awareness, for prevention, for new research, and for, of course, new treatments, which we haven't had in a while in this space. And this is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease. We have about 1.3 million in the United States that have the disease and 90,000 new cases per year. Not that easy to diagnose immediately. So maybe there are more out there, maybe 10 million globally. And the economic impacts is about 90 billion per year, all inclusive. So this is a huge problem. And so from the Office of the Surgeon General, what I'd like to highlight is the prevention side. And the prevention side in more of the exposomics. Exposomics being the study of how individuals' total environmental exposures, including diet, lifestyle, chemical pollutants, and social factors interact with their genetics over their lifetime. I think this is important. What I was happy about to see most recently is Vermont becoming the first state in the United States to ban herbicide, which has a high correlation to Parkinson's disease. And so that new law takes place November 1st. But we know that there are many more unfortunate exposures that can cause it. We know a lot of other pesticides. We know some dry cleaner chemicals. If we live near super fun sites, if we're driving and we have our windows down at a traffic light and the pollutants coming into our car, if we live near a golf course, if we've had head trauma, there are a lot of, I think Parkinson's is a man-made disease that didn't exist years ago. And we need to really look at that as MAHA family comes together and say, what is happening with these people? Why are they getting it younger? Why do our veterans have a high incidence from their exposures to burn pits or whatever? So I want that to be the attention that we bring from the Office of the Surgeon General. I think science is the production of knowledge. And I don't know if you know this, I think this will be word of the day. Agnotology is the deliberate production of ignorant information, often for commercial gain. And a lot of industries have partaken in this in the past, as you know, and I would like to highlight that going forward. There is nature and there is nurture, but the benefit of the doubt should go to the people and not to the chemical. Such an approach would ensure that chemicals introduced into the environment are safe, rather than requiring scientists, regulators, or policymakers to determine that a chemical is harmful after it's already on the market. So I know I don't have a lot of time. It's a huge subject. I wanted to get it onto your radar so you can follow it, and just know from the Office of the Surgeon General, this is what I'm going to be highlighting at the new nascent Federal Advisory Committee to End Parkinson's Disease. Thank you.
Stephanie, thank you so much. I was just thinking of what anti-science means, because there are, to go back to what Cheryl Hines said, there's so many hit pieces where they call all of us and they call Secretary Kennedy anti-science. And the things you were saying made me think, maybe science has a new definition now. And maybe that definition is the process of extracting as much money as possible from people who are being poisoned. That's what science has become. And your team, your group of people who've come to Washington are bringing back the real definition of science, which is to spend less money to make it easier and more affordable for people to lead happy and healthy lives. And so, the idea that 87% of the people getting Parkinson's are getting that from man-made problems, that these are man-made problems, and that chronic disease is a man-made problem, that there are modifiable risk factors, like Gary said, that we can do so much better, that we are doing so much better, and that they will come at us from every side to try to knock us down, to try to get us to stop doing it, because this is going to cost some people money. It's just a shocking thing. And that 87% number is a shocking number. And that's just one area. There's so many other disorders. So the work that you're doing and the work that all the people coming on this show are doing, this is really God's work. This is so important to the future of mankind. So thank you.
I look forward to seeing you all in person on Monday.
Definitely. So yet another great MAHA champion who makes it easier for millions of people in this country, specifically 45 million people on so many different platforms to lead happier and healthier lives, is Dr. Eric Berg. And, he's been teaching people how to do things in a more healthy way for more than 30 years. And, so people can learn how the body works, how to support their own body with practical strategies for better health. And, once again, you don't learn that from the companies making these dangerous products. You have to learn it from people like Dr. Berg, from people like Gary Brecka, and from this new team in Washington who was really fighting to support American children and families. So, Dr. Berg, thanks so much for all the work you do, and thanks for coming on again.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Tony. So, yeah, let me just ask you a question, Tony. Like when we get sick, where do we go? We go to the doctor, right? The most trained, the most credible, the most educated, trusted in the person in the field of health. But what I stumbled on recently was just mind-blowing that I don't know if you know this, but the average doctor only gets 1.2 hours of nutrition training per year in medical school. And I didn't stutter, it's 1.2 hours. That is crazy. That is crazy. So we send our doctors through this decade of training, but a lot of the training is about the management of symptoms and management of the disease. Unfortunately, missing this really key little factor, which is about food. Food rarely gets mentioned at all, even in the doctor's visit. So this is the part I want to discuss a little bit. And even those few 1.2 hours per year, they're not showing you what to eat. It's about biochemistry. They might be talking about the classic vitamin deficiency, like vitamin C would be scurvy, or B1 is berry, or B3 is pellagra, but they're not really getting into food. So unfortunately, they're focused on the consequences of poor diet without addressing the poor diet. And that's really the system that's broken. And also, about 1 in 8 people in America, adults, are metabolically healthy. That means 88% of them are not metabolically healthy. So this kind of backs up what I just mentioned, because when we're talking about, there's a big difference between acute disease or acute care and chronic care, or acute disease and chronic disease. You know, medicine's awesome. Acute care, chronic disease is where it breaks down. In chronic disease, you have lifestyle factors, you have insulin resistance, you have way too many carbohydrates. And this is at the root of a lot of the key metabolic diseases: type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, fatty liver, very similar diseases affected by the metabolism. So you go to the doc and they basically take the cholesterol, the blood pressure, and the blood glucose, and they manage it. But they don't really go into the diet. They don't have time. It's not set up to go into the root causes. So this is the problem, is the management of symptoms. But what just happened was very, very huge. On June 8th, Secretary Kennedy and HHS just made history because 73 medical schools now have committed to requiring 40 hours of nutrition education. It's definitely a step up from 1.2 hours for every future doctor starting this fall. But it doesn't just stop there. 8 of the nation's top accrediting and licensing boards, the people who write the doctor exams, also agreed to bake nutrition right into that system. So this is Kennedy said that this nutrition is going to make up around 15% of the medical licensing exams. So if you just think about this, for the first time in I don't know how many years, doctors are going to start looking at chronic disease at deeper, like with what are you eating versus just prescription patterns. This is huge, and I'm excited about it. And I just wanted to put it on the radar so everyone knows what's going down.
Thanks, Eric. You know, it's really crazy to think that 88% of people in this country have guts that just don't work. You know, that we've been poisoned, we've been broken down, and we just need to rebuild. And, you know, you're working on this new book called Change Your Environment. And that, I think, is such an important part of this story, that it's not people's fault. It's not their genetics. It's not some big mystery. It's that, you know, there are, like Gary said, you know, there are modifiable risk factors, and we can do things better. We can make better choices. We can rebuild our environments and our bodies, and we can still lead happy and healthy lives. And that's what Secretary Kennedy really wants us to do. That's what I know you want us to do. And it really is possible. And that's what we're all fighting for. And, you know, I say it each time, but I really am deeply grateful for the messaging that you get out and the teachings to millions of people to help prop them up, to help them take the steps that they need to lead those healthier lives. Because nobody else is doing it. And if you care about something, you don't expect the government to do it. You don't expect somebody else to do it. You do it yourself. And you're one of the people doing it. And I just feel really grateful that you're here, that you're with us, and that you keep coming on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have yet another great warrior, and she is the CEO of the incredible nonprofit Children's Health Defense. She's a prolific author. She's written many, many books. She's a former professor at the NYU School of Law. She's been advocating for protecting children's health for more than 20 years, and she joins us today live from CHD's Advocacy Day to update us on all their incredible work. Just so happy to have you on here, Mary. Thank you.
Tony, thank you so much. So yes, I'm in the Senate right now, and we started the day, our first ever CHD Advocacy Day on Capitol Hill at the MAHA Center, where I had never been before. Oh my gosh, what beautiful offices. And we had a beautiful breakfast there with Rob Schneider, the comedian who flew in with his kids from California, which was wonderful. And then we had an event at the Senate Visitor Center from 12 to 2. And I have to tell you, Tony, with the perspective of, a couple decades in this fight, this is the first time where I've really seen really key leaders in Congress and in medicine across the country coming to stand with children's health defense. This was not us begging on the outside. These were MAHA warriors. These were people from CHD. And importantly, it was Senator Ron Johnson who facilitated this, and Senator Rand Paul and Representative Paul Gosar. And when I invited Surgeon General Joe Latipo of Florida, literally within 10 minutes, he was saying, I want to be there. Can I participate? So that's a new day. And Ron Johnson spoke at length about this blockbuster report that he just did based on the subcommittee's investigation, that the FDA had all the safety signals and they explicitly buried them. They explicitly knew that they were going to cause deaths and injury. And it is shocking. And so one of the things we did today is we took his blockbuster report over to Representatives Comer and Jordan in the House, because we need more support on that in the House. The other development that was so exciting is that Senator Rand Paul just put in a Senate bill to match the bill of Representative Paul Gosar in the House to end the vaccine carve-out. Many of us have been talking for years about one of the key reasons why the chronic disease epidemic has gotten so out of hand is because of the liability protection for the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industry when it comes to the childhood vaccine schedule. There is no responsibility. I said, their immunity, their corporate immunity has led to corporate impunity. And we saw that fully on display during COVID with the PrEP Act. So it's very exciting that Senator Paul has decided to bring that bill. And we have a serious conversation now in Congress that it is wrong to give a massive industry protection from liability. It is a moral hazard. And as Joe Latipo said, it really is a spiritual war. We can't have things that are poisoning us have no responsibility for what they're doing. Last but not least, we did today call to pull the COVID shots off the market. It is so different than it was back in the 70s when there was a swine flu outbreak, and after 30 to 50 deaths, they pulled the shot. Here we have over 1.6 million adverse event reports to the VAERS system. We know that that's an underestimate. We have over 36,000 reported deaths. We know that that's an underestimate by a 10-fold difference, maybe a 100-fold difference. And yet we still have these things on the market. And even though most people aren't taking them, they're still being recommended. And this system that we have of liability protection still exists. So in short, it was very exciting. We're moving on to the evening with a reception and then a screening of our latest film, Duty to Disobey. And Duty to Disobey is a really powerful film that we're going to be screening in the Congressional Visitor Center. We're expecting about 400 people. And it's a film about what happened to military personnel during COVID. What happened in the military was explicitly illegal. Secretary of War Hegseth has said as much. They forced people to take an EUA shot, experimental. It was not licensed, although they said it was licensed. And so this is a film about the people who recognized that they actually had a duty to disobey an illegal order. And they were tortured, they were harassed, they were dishonorably discharged, they were forced out of the military. And I'm very excited that Secretary of War Hegseth is going to have a representative on the roundtable to discuss this film afterwards. And the Secretary has said that they will reinstate people with back pay. But as many of the people in the film say, that's not enough. Until there is institutional accountability, they would not come back to the military. And this is what we're really fighting for, Tony. It's institutional accountability, and we don't have it yet. And we haven't had the reckoning we need, but we're on our way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. And, you make a great point that for the first time in a generation, we have people in positions of power. And you mentioned, Senator Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Paul, Dr. Joe Ladapo, Representative Gosar, and then, of course, Bobby Kennedy, Dr. Oz, their whole team. But these are people fighting for accountability and fighting to change a system that has failed the American public. These are people, these are companies and people who poisoned us. And they knew what they were doing. Like you said, they knew what they were doing. And these are crimes. These are very serious crimes against humanity, and we've been told. And for some reason, for some period of time, we were willing to accept that it's possible to have crimes without criminals. And we know that isn't true, that these are actual people making actual decisions that have harmed our children. And it has to stop, and it is going to stop. And that's what we're fighting for. So I'm really grateful for all the work you're doing, because I think that you're right, that in the past, you represented 2% of the population, 3% of the population. And now we have people in real positions of power. And now we have polling that shows that more than half the people in this country are demanding that we stop poisoning our children, and all of us. So it's great progress, but there's still so much work to do. So thanks for the work you're doing today, right now, in real time.
Thank you, Tony.
Next up, we have Dr. Robert Malone, and he's been one of the most important voices in the medical freedom and informed consent movements. And he's, played a key role in exposing the corruption in our medical, our entire medical field. And, at the height of COVID, he showed just incredible bravery going on to Joe Rogan, got 50 million views. He was right at the forefront of it, teaching millions of people that maybe they were being lied to, that maybe what they were doing was a bad thing, that maybe they should rethink the decisions they were making. And that was so instrumental in the change, the societal change that began to come, with Bobby, with people like Mary Holland, with so many of the people who come on this show. So, he's the author of a bunch of books. He's a doctor, an inventor, a scientist, a journalist. But he just did great work during COVID. He's got an incredible Substack, and he's fighting day after day to get messages out, wrestling with the, with the complicated things that go on in, Washington, D.C., that it's almost impossible to comprehend. But there's so much progress being made. And to a great extent, it's from the work that so many of you who are on this show, who are watching this show, and for the work that you, Dr. Robert Malone, do. So thank you for all the work you do and for coming on again. Can't hear you. Having trouble hearing you.
I was going to say, sorry about that. Tony, you're making me blush. That must have been why I forgot to take off my mute. So shifting gears, today I want to tell you about a weed killer that Europe banned more than 20 years ago and that still flows out of American taps today. That by taps, I mean your water. It's called atrazine. We all know about glyphosate or Roundup, but not so many know about atrazine. Atrazine is the second most used herbicide in the country. More than 70 million pounds go into corn, sorghum, and sugarcane every single year. Unfortunately, it doesn't stay on the field. It runs into our streams, our rivers, our reservoirs, and our groundwater. Now, here's the part they don't want you thinking about. In 1997, a Berkeley biologist named Tyrone Hayes was hired by the company that makes atrazine to study its effects using a frog model. They expected him to give them a clean bill of health. Instead, he found that male frogs exposed to atrazine were being chemically castrated and feminized. Some genetic males turned into functional females that laid viable eggs. The company responded not by fixing the chemical. They went after the man. Internal documents released in the litigation show a campaign to monitor him, track his appearances, and discredit his work. They assembled outside experts to defend the product. When the science became inconvenient, they shifted the fight from the data to the scientist. I know that playbook. I lived it. I know you know it too. The tools are more sophisticated now, but the objective never changes. Isolate the dissenter, damage the credibility, make the debate about the person instead of the evidence. So let's talk about that evidence. The dramatic frog headline gets argued about. Fine. But step back, and the broader picture is rock solid. Independent reviews, including meta-analyses by a scientist who's in nobody's pocket, found atrazine reliably disrupts amphibian biology at concentrations you actually find in the wild. It's not an endocrine disruptor. It is an endocrine disruptor. I'm sorry. That's not in serious dispute. Then, in November of 2025, the World Health Organization's Cancer Agency reviewed everything and classified atrazine as probably carcinogenic to humans. That's the same category by the same agency where glyphosate landed in a decade ago. And yet the EPA still defends it. Now, here's what most people get wrong. You're not mainly eating atrazine, unlike glyphosate. You're drinking it. On your plate, atrazine is a minor actor. In your water, it's the main event. It's highly mobile. It persists in groundwater for years. Germany banned it in 1991, and 18 years later, it was still one of the most common contaminants in their groundwater. A U.S. Geological Survey analysis detected atrazine in 55% of surface water samples and 70% of groundwater. Here in the U.S., that's your water. The Environmental Working Group estimates 30 million Americans in 28 states are drinking water with detectable atrazine in it. And the European limit for any pesticide in drinking water is 30 times stricter than ours. It even shows up in conventional milk. Researchers found no detectable residues in organic milk. They found atrazine in conventional milk. So why is it still here? Because the agencies meant to protect you were captured a long time ago. You all know this story. Even inside the MAHA Commission, agricultural interests had a seat at the table, and the report named atrazine as a concern, but stopped short of doing anything about it. Scientific concern does not become policy on its own. It takes political will, and that will keeps running into a lot of money. You are that political will. You can't fix federal policy from your kitchen, but you can act. So filter your water. A reverse osmosis or a good carbon filter knocks atrazine down. Buy organic milk or milk from a local farmer you trust. Find out if it's sprayed on your kids' parks and schoolyard, and raise hell if it is. Because the government is not here to help. We are. Thanks a lot for listening. And don't forget, it's not just glyphosate, it's atrazine in your water.
Thanks, Robert. I mean, it's crazy to think that 30 million people are drinking atrazine in their water and in their milk, and that's a probable carcinogen. and that, so it's a great point too, that we have the political will, from below, from the bottom, from our choices, from our votes, to really fight this. And you've been helping us now for 5 or 6 years. You've been helping millions of us get that political will and think about things and think through things that those corporations that are poisoning us don't want us to think about. And we are now thinking about them day and night. And, we're unwilling to be told what to do, what to think, what to read, or what to put into our bodies. And in large part, that's because of the messaging that you've put out there and the stories that you've told and the books that you've written. So I just feel really grateful. This, like Dr. Joe Ladapo said, this is a spiritual battle, and you are one of the key warriors in that battle. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. Give them hell, huh?
Definitely. Next up, we have Dr. Jason Yeager, and he's a doctor of chiropractic medicine and secretary of the International Chiropractors Association, a state and national, and he's a leader of the chiropractic profession all around the world, and he's vice president and District 4 director of the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, past president of the Nevada Chiropractic Physicians Board. So all kinds of things. I mean, just trust me, he's done it all. He's at the forefront of the chiropractic movement, and we need chiropractic, and we need to have a system that is open to alternative health and that is not just about creating problems and then treating them. We need preventative medicine, and Dr. Yeager is at the forefront of that. So thank you for the work you do, and thanks for coming on.
Tony, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and I appreciate you having me. I believe America doesn't have a healthcare problem as much as a healthcare utilization problem. Too often, we wait until people become sick before they're engaging into the healthcare system. And we know, as we learn about the MAHA movement, that the future is prevention. That belief has really shaped my work throughout my career. But before I just go into discussing legislation and research, I'd like to point out a couple of important things. The public might not know that doctors of chiropractic are licensed in all 50 states. We have physician status under the Federal Social Security Act and under state law. In Nevada, for example, doctors of chiropractic are called physicians. So while our training and our clinical focus is different than our friends that are medical and osteopathic doctors, we do share a common goal, and that's helping patients achieve a better healthcare outcome and an improved quality of life. That recognition reflects the important role that chiropractic has played in American healthcare for over a century. Now, one of my primary national focuses has been improving that patient access to care. In Nevada, I had the privilege of chairing the effort behind Assembly Bill 511. Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager helped us put this into law in 2025. Now imagine this passed legislation, bipartisan, 100%. Literally every assembly person and every senator voted in favor of giving this equality and parity to chiropractic physicians. And of course, it was signed into law by Governor Joe Lombardo. Now, nationally, I've been working with leaders throughout the profession for Medicare modernization efforts. And this goal, it's really straightforward. Medicare beneficiaries need to get greater access and greater services from doctors of chiropractic based on their training and how they're licensed under state scope and law. These efforts are not about replacing other healthcare providers. Really, it's expanding choice for Americans, improving access, and ensuring that we can receive the most appropriate healthcare for their condition. Healthcare works best when a patient has options. Now, a second area of research, of focus I want to discuss is research. Now, I've offered nearly a dozen papers in the peer-reviewed literature, papers on spine, spinal rehabilitation, postural correction, radiographic analysis, artificial intelligence application, clinical outcomes. All of this will be the basis of my PhD work. I'm proud to be a part of a body of a research team that began with my mentor, Dr. Don Harrison, chiropractic doctor and PhD. He pioneered the work that helped establish the modern chiropractic biophysics that continues today. And that work continues by my friend and mentor, Dr. Deet Harrison. Now, as policymakers continue searching for solutions to rising healthcare costs, chronic pain, disability, over-reliance on medication, evidence-informed conservative approaches, we deserve to have a meaningful place in the conversation with our fellow physician provider friends. Research allows us to move beyond opinions, and we can focus on what's best for patients. Finally, another area I'm passionate about is expanding access for care for our military members and veterans. Our service members routinely face physically demanding occupational and extraordinary stresses on their spine, on their joints, on their muscles, and on their nervous system. Doctors of chiropractic have served within the Veterans Health Administration, the Department of Defense, for many years. They've helped provide conservative care options for active duty professionals as well as our veterans. Our veterans deserve access to a full range of healthcare options available. So as we look to the future, I believe chiropractic has an important role to help make America healthy again through research, through legislation, through prevention, through whole being health, and through support of our military and our veterans, through collaboration with other healthcare professionals and services with our patient. The future of whole being health will look beyond symptoms, help people move better, function better, and live healthier lives. The future of healthcare is bringing the best of every healthcare professional together to help patients live healthier and longer and more functional lives. Tony and the MAHA team, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. And, Big Pharma doesn't want us to be healthy. They don't want chiropractic medicine. They don't want alternative medicine of any kind. They want us to be sick so they can sell us more drugs. But chiropractors can make money preventing illness or treating illness in the least invasive possible way. So, like you said, it's not a question of choosing doctors of medicine versus doctors of chiropractic medicine. It's a question of having the full range of options and not having censorship, not having propaganda, not having chiropractors kept out of any program. I mean, CMS, of course, should love chiropractic medicine. It will save money. There have been studies showing that. We're going to push those studies. We're going to teach people who don't know because they've been lied to that the only way people can be healthy is through expensive treatments that were caused by people who don't care about public health. They just care about making money. So I'm grateful to all chiropractors for the incredible preventative care that they provide to something like 30 million people in this country every year. So thanks, Jason. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you.
Next up, we have Dr. Sherry McAllister, and she's a distinguished speaker, thought leader, podcast host, and author who's been, featured in Forbes and recognized by, leading companies and institutions worldwide. She's the president of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, one of the world's largest healthcare organizations. And she, with more than 39,000 members all across the country and on 4 continents. So she's also one of the MAHA Chiropractic Hub senior people who's coming in to help us teach the American people and inform the government of ways that it can save money by embracing chiropractic medicine. So thank you so much, Sherry, for coming on.
Absolutely delighted. Thank you, Tony, for having me. I am so excited to be with this group because I think we all share a common belief, and that is America can be healthier than it is today. Now, for 30 years, I had the privilege of serving patients as a doctor of chiropractic. And in that time, I witnessed something remarkable. People would often come into my office because they were in pain, But what actually kept them healthy was not the absence of pain. It was, in fact, the presence of alignment. Alignment in their movement, sleep, nutrition, relationships, and their purpose. What I learned is that health is not a destination. It is actually a daily practice. And that realization ultimately led me from private practice to serving as the president of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, where our mission is simple: help more people understand the value of chiropractic care and its role in whole being health through public education. Today, the foundation reaches patients, employers, media organizations, healthcare leaders, and communities across the globe. Through public awareness campaigns, national media outreach, some educational resources, and partnerships, we've helped millions of consumers really better understand that health is not simply about managing symptoms, but about function, stability, and vitality. But we also know there is more work to do, and America is facing, as we've heard on this call, a health crisis unlike anything we've seen before. Millions of Americans live with chronic disease, struggle with anxiety, depression, 43% obesity, inactivity, and preventable health conditions. Healthcare spending continues to rise, yet many people feel less healthy, less energetic, and less hopeful. And I understand what it means when your health suddenly becomes uncertain. Years ago, I was involved in a very serious motor vehicle accident. It changed the trajectory of my life. In an instant, I went from taking my health for granted to realizing how truly precious it is. And what gave me the will to cope was actually hope. The belief that people and our body could come together to help heal and recover. And given the right support and opportunity, it in fact happened for me. That experience actually taught me something I never forgot. Health is not something we should wait to value until it's threatened. It's something we should invest in every day. And perhaps more importantly, it taught me that the people need hope. They need to know that their future can be different from their present and that they're not defined by their diagnosis, their pain, or their circumstances. With the right information, the right habits, and the right support, positive change is possible. The challenge before us is not simply medical, it's actually educational, because people cannot choose what they do not understand. That is why I believe one of the most important pillars to making America healthy again is public education. When people understand why movement matters, they move. When people understand why sleep matters, they prioritize their rest. Why stress can steal their health, they seek balance. And when they understand that the chiropractic care is not just about feeling better, but functioning better, they begin to see health differently. The Foundation's Adjusted Reality podcast and recent Forbes book, Adjusted Reality, Supercharge Your Whole Being for Optimal Living and Longevity, actually describes the 7 pillars of health. These pillars remind us that health is not one thing. It is the integration of how we invest in ourselves. We replenish our energy. We nourish our bodies. We move with purpose. We maintain our alignment. We cultivate contentment, and we continually revitalize our lives. Now, whether you're a parent trying to raise healthy children, an employer seeking a thriving workforce, a healthcare provider serving your community, or maybe you're a policymaker shaping the future, we all want the same thing. We want America to live longer, live better, and we want to live those extra years we're granted with quality, purpose, and independence. Together, we can elevate awareness and help people move in a better way towards a proactive health creation rather than a reactive reality. Together, we can empower Americans to become active and participants in their health journeys, because it's a simple but powerful truth. When people understand better, they can choose to do better. When they choose better, they live better. And when enough Americans live better, then we have truly made America healthy again. Keep learning, stay active, and thank you, MAHA, for everything you're doing to help make America healthy again.
Thank you so much, Sherry. That was really, really well said, just beautifully said. And, you know, the idea that it's daily practice, daily processes that we all need, that we shouldn't wait to get sick. We should take practical steps, you know, like Gary said, like Dr. Berg said, there are modifiable risk factors that we can do a better job. And chiropractic medicine is just such an important part of that process, that we can improve function, stability, and that, we should all be willing to invest every day in our health. And, like you said, chiropractic medicine gives us that option, that we're not waiting around, we're taking proactive steps versus reactive steps. And that can lead us to lead more active, healthier, happier lives. So thank you for all that you've done, Sherry. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the incredible book. And hope that you will come on many, many more times.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Dr. Joel Friedman, and he's been practicing a unique blend of Eastern and Western medicine in Maui since 1990. He graduated from Emory and Miami Medical School. He's the father of 2 children and the author of a beautiful new book, From Father to Son, 10 Guiding Principles to Live By, coming out right in time for Father's Day. Highly recommended. It's a beautiful book. He's got a lot of wisdom, and he's taught me a lot about being healthy, and it's just a great human being. So I'm thrilled to have him here today. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you very much, Tony. I'm thrilled to be here. First, I want to say I want to try to live by an aphorism that I choose to live by. Be brief, be bright, be gone. I'll do my best. First, I want to commend you for the master chef role you have taken on. You've created a incredibly delicious and important stew. Making stew is something I know a little bit about. And you are the master chef. Bobby is obviously the meat. Cheryl, the sous chef. Mehmet apparently is the tomato sauce. And the rest just are ingredients in that delicious stew. And you're serving up a delicious portion of truth. And that's the thing that everybody in this group seems to have as a guiding light in their lives. And while one might think that this is true for everybody, it's simply not. The COVID years have made it very, very clear to us that to a large extent, we're living in a post-truth world. And this has been a real splash of ice water on my face. And to deal with this, where truth to many people don't matter. You've had guests on here who've been very brave, Robert in particular, and Bobby on the tip of the spear, and taking a lot of incoming as a result of it, all speaking truthfully. But to the authorities, it doesn't matter. What matters is the prevailing narrative. And if someone is going to challenge that narrative and get in the way of that and the promotion and the making of money, apparently, they will do exactly what Robert says. They will kill the messenger, discredit them, and take away their livelihood, which is just beyond belief. It's egregious to a huge extent. Okay, so having said that, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. What is a collective American health, if not the collective of individual health? And we all need to make that as our priority. And it comes from the bottom up. From my perspective, as I say, we're all part of this stew. While some people function at the highest levels of policy and executive functions, other people, like myself, have been in the trenches for 45 years, dealing one-on-one with people, listening to people's problems, trying to come up with an understanding of origin and solutions to come up with. Truth is essential. It's been my guiding light, and I think it's been the guiding light of all the people you've had on your show so far. With the pursuit of truth comes knowledge, and with the applying that knowledge comes wisdom. And that wisdom can lead to a very, very deep, productive, and fruitful life. And this is what I challenge myself to do in writing this book, is to put down in 10 simple principles the guiding principles that will lead a good life if one can just simply follow them. They're not commandments, they're just principles that I think are really, really important. So let's see, the ignorance we have to overcome is just a lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. And with that knowledge that we gain, we can make good choices. With good choices, we can improve our health and the health of the people around us. But a lot of people, even when they know what the right thing to do is, they don't. And the question is, why not? Why, if you know what's best for you, why are you still doing this? Why do you still get drunk? Why do you still do these behaviors that are very, very harmful to you? And that really gets into a deeper spiritual discussion with people, which I enter into on a daily basis. So without getting too much into that, we're a meaning-seeking creature, and context is everything. We all are trying to discover the context for the experiences and the sufferings that we have in this lifetime. And to a large extent, this book goes into that in good detail. The most important thing that I think can come from above, from policy, et cetera, is to assure freedom, to assure sovereignty over our choices, over our lives, and those of our children. Whether one believes in a particular thing or not, like vaccines, for example, one can educate oneself, and one should have, from an educated perspective, the right and the freedom and the sovereignty to make choices for ourselves and accept responsibility for those choices. So that, to a large extent, is the message that I want to give. And I would encourage everyone to also, while we tackle these big thorny problems, big pharma, big ag, big food, to create parallel systems, as Havel has provided us. Create parallel systems that give people a choice, like the movement with food, the regenerative agriculture. Create parallel systems so we don't have to fight the demons. We can actually provide parallel systems. People can jump on board, and anybody that sees a better system will jump on board. And thank you very, very much for having me on this show. I appreciate it.
Joel, thanks so much for coming on and for writing that book, which I think, to a great extent is about helping our children make better choices. And so, you had said, why is it that people know the truth or should know the truth, that they've heard the truth, but they can't act on it? And I would say that, that's a process that we're all struggling with it, that we have some piece of the truth and we wrestle, we struggle, and we try to do a better job. And we need wise people like you and like so many of the other people on this show today to just keep pounding home, keep giving new perspectives so that people can make better decisions. And I was thinking back on that hike you and I took last year, where I said a poem at the very end that I think you liked, and it ends with the line, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And that's the thing, is that we all have to keep on fighting. And Bobby and Cheryl and Dr. Oz and Russell Brand, Gary Brecka, Eric Berg, such incredibly brave people. You are such an incredibly brave people. You probably saved the life of one of my closest friends, so just, warriors like you, fighters, all of us are so important to this whole thing, to this whole battle. People doing it not for money and not for power and not for fame, because they believe that it's the right thing to do. It's the best thing to do with their time, with their lives. So thank you so much for writing this incredible book, this inspirational book. Hope all the people watching will read it. And, great to have you on.
Great. And one parting thought. Jim Harrison said, in life, we're meant to be curious, not consoled. Stay curious, people. Stay curious.
Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, we have, and it's last but certainly not least, Dr. Robert Redfield. And he was the CDC Director from 2018 to 2021. He's a virologist and HIV/AIDS researcher, a vocal advocate for public health transparency, and the author of, just a really fascinating book called Redfield's Warning, because we all do need to be warned, because we've been lied to so many times. We've been lied to about glyphosate, about atrazine, about the COVID vaccine. So we need warnings. And Dr. Redfield, all the people on this show have been warning us, have been coming out, standing up, telling the truth, even when it was really, really difficult. So Dr. Robert Redfield, thank you for coming on. Thanks for writing this book, and great to have you on here again.
Thanks for having me, Tony. I was asked to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that was recently in the news. I want to start by just emphasizing a point that I do stress in my book, and that is that biosecurity is really a major national security issue for our country. Clearly, the COVID pandemic probably made many people more aware of the impact that new pathogens can have when they enter our nation and the world. And in fact, it was said in this broadcast, people were saying that we were talking about chronic disease, and someone was saying that this was another problem created by man. I just want to emphasize, I think many of you do know that, and I think people have come more clean about their analysis, particularly the CIA, that I think all the evidence is, as I stated several years ago, that this pandemic started not from nature, but it started from scientific research in a laboratory in China, and really is a direct consequence of man trying to manipulate nature. And that resulted, unfortunately, in this pathogen. This is one of the reasons I've argued and will continue to argue that it's not prudent for us to be involved in what I call gain-of-function research, trying to learn how to make pathogens more pathogenic for man. In the recent weeks, we had a number of episodes that bring to the front end of our thinking about the issue of biosecurity. We had the hantavirus infections and the cruise ship down in Argentina and Antarctica. We have the current ongoing Ebola outbreak in the DRC, which I do believe will become probably the second, if not potentially the first largest Ebola outbreak we've ever had in the world, although it will stay in the regional areas of Africa, the DRC, Uganda. Maybe we'll get into South Sudan, maybe Rwanda, Tanzania. But the DRC is pretty experienced. They've had 17 Ebola outbreaks to date. And but it's going to be a significant problem for sure. More recently, though, there was something that was quite disturbing to me personally, because I've been involved in this. When you read that custom agents and FBI arrested 2 NIH scientists that were bringing in pathogens that they had collected when they were in Brazzaville, Congo, when they were confronted by customs. Unfortunately, they weren't truthful, and they were found to have a number of vials that carried pathogens that wasn't activated, or so it said, monkeypox, because they were bringing them back from a monkeypox outbreak that was going on in the Congo at the time. Now, both of these NIH scientists worked at the Rocky Mountain Laboratory, and both of them were actually foreign nationals, one from Cameroon and one from the Netherlands. But the thing that disturbed me the most when they were confronted by the customs, they didn't understand why this was a big deal, because they stated, we do this all the time. We bring back these pathogens all the time. And there's a proper way to bring infectious pathogens back into this country through import licenses that they can get through CDC. And there's an improper way, which these individuals did. I say that because earlier, about 2 years ago, there was also a report, you may remember, about an individual from the University of Michigan from China, along with another colleague from the University of China, that were importing a very problematic fungus into our country, which could destroy our crops. So again, just to highlight that this biosecurity issue is a big issue. I think we ought to take it really seriously. We're going to still be plagued with new pathogens that have an initial potential to change our lives. Luckily for us, the HANA virus is a very difficult virus to transmit to human, the Andes strain, and really wasn't going to cause a big problem for us, although it did cause some concern for the individuals involved. And now the Ebola outbreak, which is obviously a really big outbreak. We should keep the people in that area of the world in our prayers, because this is going to be, I think, a devastating outbreak for them, although limited to no risk to us. So I appreciate everything, Tony, that you're doing. I appreciate everything that MAHA is doing. It's amazing the progress that's being made. And I want to thank you for having me. Hopefully comments are helpful.
Thanks so much. Yes, very, very helpful. And your book is just a groundbreaking book. And, whether people are bringing pathogens into the country or fungus into the country or poisoning our children with, all kinds of toxic substances and products that they take, or in the water or in milk, as, Dr. Robert Malone said, all of those things, we have to work to stop it. And as but one of the key things that Bobby says is that the main thing we can control is the choices we make ourselves. So, there are modifiable risk factors, like Gary Brecka said, and we can change our environments, like Dr. Berg said. So we can make choices. We can take steps with good advice, with good warnings from people like you, and then have better health outcomes. And that, I think, is the goal of shows like this, books like yours, influencers like many of the people who came on today, doctors, scientists. So, I think we're heading in the right direction. I'm proud of it. And I'm grateful for the work you're doing and for coming on, for coming to our big events, and for taking such a big role in all of this. Thanks again.
Thank you, Tony. God bless.
You too. So, thanks for joining us for yet another great MAHA Media Hub. It's just been a very powerful hour, and I feel grateful to all the people who came on today. And I'm not going to make this quite as long as it usually is, but I'm going to say that I think there was a lot of really good information from a lot of important and hardworking and serious people. And the MAHA movement is just doing so well that we've had a Senate race with Julia Letlow that we clearly impacted. And that's just a great win to get Senator Cassidy out. He was a thorn in our side. He was impeding much of the work that Secretary Kennedy was doing. He's now gone. He's out of our lives. And we have the possibility of great progress without somebody like that. And then we've got Zach Lane in Iowa. And that's just a great victory. We worked very hard for it. We endorsed him early. We believe in him. And once again, we believe that he is one of those MAHA champions, doing it, like I said before, not for money, not for power, not for fame, but, so clearly because he wants to protect our children, our families, our country, and our future. So, just a great day today. Great to have all these people on. And, please, do all the things that you're asked to do when you get the follow-up email. Read the MAHA report on Substack. It's got more than 200,000 readers each week. Read that, share it, help us build our mailing list there. All of the influencers here have, something like 200 million followers. So that's incredible power. We want to harness every bit of that power to help with the midterms, to continue the success of the MAHA movement. There's so many people out there who will say that we're not succeeding, that we're failing, and they write hit pieces and they make up stories and they try to sow dissent. They try to turn us against each other. We won't let that happen. We know that we are on a mission to make America healthy, and that is the most important thing we can be doing with our lives now. So I'm grateful to all of you for the work that you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time, 4 p.m. Wednesday. Have a great weekend.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.